The convergence of our voices is the song of our beauty. Many voices will speak here, the song woven through diverse notes. Welcome to Crone Chronicles, and today we are speaking to Miriam Meir, who is 95 years old, and she talks about her life and her time in Israel and Palestine and the work that she did there. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Miriam Meir. That was correct, wasn't it? And who is in Calgary. And so, Miriam, how would you like to introduce yourself?
Well, I'm first of all a great grandmother of a lovely young boy that just had his birthday, second birthday yesterday, but he's in the province of Quebec, near
Ah,
Quebec City. So he's a lucky boy, a real Canadian, going to speak English and French.
oh, that's
Perfect.
great. Yeah. And how old is he?
Two, just
Two.
two
Oh,
yesterday. So
yeah.
that's really great. And I have three children who are all grown up now, of course, and parents, and then I had eight grandchildren. So that's really nice. I had four children, and my baby girl passed away when she was 6 months old of
Oh,
congenital heart disease. So then
mm.
I put in the child welfare for adoption in 1967. So they had this lovely baby girl with blue eyes, and the kind of people asked for. And I said I didn't mind what she looked like as long as she was healthy.
Yes.
And so my she was just a lovely young girl, and so we kept asking the child welfare, what about her identifying adoption papers, because they send you sort of a vague record, but not anything about her medical history or her background. We waited 42 years. I finally
Whoa.
called them and said, I'm going to get a lawyer after you if you don't give me that identifying information. So it turned out the reason they weren't giving it is because she was a 60s scoop Indigenous
Oh,
girl, a
yeah.
Blackfoot and French. And so I thought that was just fine, but
Mhm.
we had to go through a whole process.
Yeah.
And then
Okay.
of course, she wanted to know where her mother was and all that
Mm-hmm.
kind of thing. So we put on a whole search, and finally, we found the mother in right 60 kilometers away from where she lived in
Wow.
St. Catharines, Ontario.
Mm-hmm.
And we actually arranged a reunion, and I warned her. I said, I don't know, sometimes in adoption, these people don't want to meet the person, but it
Mm-hmm.
turned out really well. I'm
Yeah.
one of the few success stories because a lot of the adoptive parents didn't want the children to meet the birth mother, but it turned
Mm-hmm.
out she met the family, and she was invited to the wedding of one of the family members with her
Mm-hmm.
children, and her husband met. So it was one of those positive things,
Yeah.
that went.
Yeah.
So
So
that's that part.
did she try to connect to her Indigenous culture in any way?
Oh, well, we tried that. She came to Calgary, and Cheryl Gray Eyes that you interviewed. I'm a
Mm-hmm.
very good friend of hers, as I put in the um, email. And at that time, Cheryl was working at the Red Lodge, U of C, Indigenous Center, And so we went over there, and Catherine sort of freaked out a bit. She
Mm.
hadn't sort of faced the whole thing, you know. And Cheryl, you know how friendly and warm she is, you know. So, but she later on she found, you know, started look, you know, finding it was, you know, okay. It's just that there's was a huge in the St. Catharines where she lives is a very quite a racist place. Bad enough here, but what is there is worse. So,
Oh, wow.
you know, so anyway, she always asked me to send her beaded moccasins, so I always bring her beaded moccasins anyway. So, and but I think now she's older and she's, you know, processed it better. But it's hard because, you know, if you don't find out when you're 42 years old,
Hmm.
it you know must be, you know, be
It's
really
it's
difficult.
hard, yeah, yeah.
She
At
actually
the
found her birth father too.
mm,
He was a white man, and apparently they had a, you know, relationship. So it wasn't sort of a, you know, so it was more of a love thing than, you know. So that was okay too, you know.
hmm hmm
So
yeah.
the other part of me is that I'm what I call a human rights activist, and
Hmm
I stand up and speak out for the Palestinian people who are suffering from colonial settlement oppression in a huge way.
hmm
And also, of course, I'm very active with reconciliation, and I have several close Indigenous friends. And here in Calgary, where it's much easier to meet the people here than some of the other places because we have a whole lot of nations all around. The, you know, the colonizers put this fort right in the middle of where they all were, and so we have about 8 different nations at least, and 3 Métis nations right here. So if you want, if you want to, you just put yourself out and meet them. And my way of meeting them was to join Idle No More back in 2012 when they were quite active and they had these things called flash mob, and I thought, what's that, you know? And it was having a big round dance right in the mall
Wow.
right around Christmas time. So that was hilarious. We had
Mm.
a, but then and then we made our own drums in a drum workshop with Cheryl and her lovely daughter Chantal, who they work together quite often, and then we they would invite us to their little home, which was, you know, just a humble bungalow. But we'd have a potluck supper, and then we'd go out in the backyard, and they teach us the songs on the drums, and they taught us traditional, uh, you know, ceremonies and things like that. And then there was another lovely woman who was from the Blackfoot Nation, and she was taking a master's degree in Calgary in education, and she taught us a lot of the spirituality, which was lovely. And then there was a thing called Blackfoot Resurgence uh, meetings and lessons down in an old community center downtown. So I went to that and learned a lot more. They wanted
Yeah.
me to teach the Blackfoot language, but well, that was too much. I learned Hebrew and
Yeah.
learned French and English. That's about all I could handle. And worked with. I went over to Israel, Palestine, and of course didn't know, you know, what went on there. This was
Yes.
back in 1983 because we
Hmm
were told, oh, Israel's such a great place and all that. And and I just happened to get a job as an NGO working with Palestinian children and youth. It was a project called Arab Peace Project. They didn't call them Palestinians, they called them Arabs. So right away, there's something going on there. And
Yeah.
anyway, the children were just lovely. And through them, of course, I met the parents. And they were lovely people, very
Yeah.
hospitable, invited in the home, coffee, tea, and even if they hardly had anything. So you can imagine right now with all this slaughter going on in Gaza, how I feel about. They have 30,000 children who have been killed
Yeah.
in this
Yeah.
genocide.
What was the work that you did when you were there?
Well, I worked in that project for quite a few years, and then they wanted to. The Israel government wanted to bring over these Ethiopians, so I was a volunteer coordinator. But guess what? I couldn't find any volunteers because there was so much
Oh.
racism against the black people, and I thought I had been I had joined civil rights back in the 70s, late middle 70s, I guess it was, and I even went on a march for John
Oh.
Luther, Martin Luther King Jr.
Mhm.
Memorial March, and that was what started me really with the civil, with the whole business of justice and all that. So I was there for 15 years, and then I got so fed up. It was just unbelievably bad, and
Yeah.
the,
In what
the
way? What was
well
going on?
well they everybody. I'll give you an example. There was one
Mm.
really lovely woman who named Estara, and went in. She had a darling little girl, and who wanted to go in a restaurant and have a pizza. So there was a restaurant with a pizza place in the town I lived in, Tanya is called, and we went in there, and everybody looked as though she, had three heads or something, and they're just like this. And as I say, I couldn't get volunteers to help. I finally found a few nice people that would help, but it was really hard. And then they shoved them off into some horrible settlements that were, really, I don't know, just all. So there's some examples. Anyway,
Yeah, yeah. So the Ethiopians were going because of conflict.
um, they they uh, they brought them. There were 16,000, if you could believe it, coming
Mm.
to this small city that I lived in, and we had to find places for them to stay. And there was a whole uproar about where they could stay. We finally found a couple of empty hotels, small hotels, to have them go in. But they'd come from a village villages in Ethiopia, so they
Mhm.
had those little pots with things and fires and that kind of thing. They
Yeah,
were adjusted to the that hotels and things like that. So
yeah,
it
yeah,
was really
yeah.
really hard.
Yes.
But
Mm.
anyway, they finally shipped them off to these awful settlements. So excuse me.
Yeah. So weren't the Ethiopians or some of them considered the 13th tribe?
Yes, yeah,
Mm.
they were, and they they wanted them to get. They didn't. The rabbis or the head rabbis there didn't. This is really off. Didn't think they were circumcised properly.
Oh,
So they wanted them to get redone or something like that.
yeah.
So they had a big demonstration outside the head chief rabbi's offices. So we supplied blankets and food and I think, for them to have the demonstration. Anyway, yeah. So I'll tell you, it's the whole story. But anyway, so so then I worked with people that were in a that had been in imprisoned for drugs and alcohol, and because I was a trained alcohol and drug counselor, I worked with some of those people in another
Yeah.
city,
Where was
and
that?
that was in Ashdod, which is a port city,
Mm.
not the greatest place to go, but they had a nice beach there. Anyway, you go on the beach, and uh, and there was a little. We had a little wooden struck. How I guess a little wooden meeting place, and what do you know? If the people, these very religious people, came and burned, set fire to it, because yeah, this is why you run into it. So that was really difficult. So then I sort of gave up and came back, and then I was not in great shape mentally, shall we say. So I joined a Tai Chi group called Taoist Tai Chi, which has a big center here in Calgary, and they're quite international actually. So I really it was really wonderful because I learned all about the Chinese culture, because the people had come, from China to get away from the oppression over there, and so that I liked it so much, I trained to be a Tai Chi instructor. So I did that for quite a few years.
Yeah.
So
So
yeah.
do you still do Tai Chi?
Yes, actually,
Mm.
I do. I go once a week, and then I practice in the living room when
Hmm.
when I'm not at the class. Pretty good shape. I have my lovely dog who's lying on the lying out on the living room rug here, and I take him out every day, or we sometimes go to a dog park, and he's 60. We're getting old together, so he's 16 now, and he was what we call a rescue dog. We from one of the reserves here, and he's black and white, and he's border collie, husky, and a bunch of other stuff. But just a beautiful fellow. And I've got a beautiful carving. It's a I think it's a tusk of somebody of I don't know
Okay,
what.
so you can't
Oh,
see it.
there it is.
Yeah, yeah, okay, yeah, now.
That's a
Um,
yeah. You see that? Yeah.
yes,
Okay.
yeah.
Now I know where to show the stuff.
And
Then I
and that
have
is a carving from a tusk?
from a tusk. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know of what.
Mm.
Some big animal, a caribou or something. And then this is an African thing I got. It's a warrior with a looks like a some kind of like a animal on its head. Uh,
Okay.
some African thing that not what do they call them? Yeah, I can't remember the name. They're sort of like deer, but they run around a lot in Africa. And then he had a sword, but we lost it. But it's a beautiful black. I don't know, a very hard wood, very I don't there's some tree they had down there,
I wonder if
and
it's
then
mahogany.
yeah, mahogany probably is. It's quite dark. So then I have a very unusual uh, goblet that is
Okay.
Palestinian, and it's an ancient design that goes back thousands of years, and they make it in the Hebron glass factory.
Mhm.
So, which is amazing that the thing is still going, because the settlers keep raiding that place all the time. And then this is a sample of the pottery. I don't know what else. Well, you have to ask me something because I've run out of conversation.
Let's see. Some of your activism when you were in Toronto back in the
Oh,
70s.
oh, yeah. Well, my early history isn't as rather dark, shall we say. Um, I had two alcoholic parents, and my father was he was a pilot and an aeronautical engineer. So he flew planes and drove fast boats and cars. and he eventually left this. And my mother was what you'd call a, a very self centered, cruel person. So I had one brother who turned out to be schizophrenic. So it wasn't too good. So I left home when I was 18 and went as far away as I could, Vancouver. So then I went to the university there, and it was in social work. And at that time, they had this Freudian uh, background for which is not very applicable when you're working with, say, people in the downtown east side or something in Vancouver, I should say. So I quit the course and came back and went to Western and went into uh, public health nursing. They had it right in the main university, and then you did practical work, in between times. So that's when I was working in child welfare. So anyway, so that so what I found is sort of a way it was helping people and being really involved in music and dance. So I joined a, a folk dance international group that did folk dancing in Toronto. And then when I came out here, I joined them out here. And also, I like classical music and even opera and also jazz and quite huge genre of music I like. And of course, nature. And then, as I say, I've had maybe 20, 25 dogs in my life and
Huh.
about five cats or something. And then one of my sons wanted to raise guinea pigs. So we had a bar downstairs that we weren't using. So we had the guinea pigs in cages on the bar. Then
Yeah.
he would sell them to the pet shop. I
And
read just a short couple of sentences. Uh,
okay.
it, it's it's oh, it's wait a minute. It's an indigenous blessing. May may the stars carry you. Maybe the stars carry you away. May the flowers fill you with um, a good heart, and and oh dear, and may the great spirit keep you strong. And this was written by Chief Dan George, who was the former chief of Field Wallace Nation in British Columbia, and he was also an actor and a writer. So that oh, I didn't say it very well, but anyway, you got the message.
Yes. Okay. So,
And
well, thank you so much for coming on. Thank you for listening to Crone Chronicles, and don't forget to hit the like button and to subscribe. Bye.